All right, guys, welcome back to the most professional digital marketing channel. Today, we're going to be going over my favorite acronym, S.E.T. Simplify, Execute, Test, Transform. What you can use this for is to simplify anything in your life, task, or business, and then execute it and test it and transform it. Let's jump into and see how you can use this acronym to solve any problem that you're facing. So simplify, execute, test, transform. What does this mean? Let me give you a story. So if you've ever had a challenge in your life, say you've hired an employee, maybe you're dealing with a relationship problem, how do you look at that situation and reduce it down to the variables that you need to execute to ultimately bring a solution to the situation? So you have this problem and it's
overflowing with complications, and the complications seem to add.
If you can get down and focus on the root of the problem, you can solve that thing in which you're facing. The biggest problems are always reducible down into simple changes. Now, it might be a few simple changes depending on the complexity of the problem, or it might be just one simple thing. So we're going to break down how S.E.T can help you to solve those things. Let's jump back in. All right, starting with simplify. So when you have a problem, that problem is always going to exist in the real world much more complex than it actually is. So if you think of that problem like a tree, okay? What you need to do is you need to think of how can you get to the root system of that tree? How can you get down here? And really simplification is the best way. So it's, in a way, think of it like this. If you have a vehicle and that vehicle, it has problems with the tire, your best bet to fix the problems with the tires is just to get new tires. You can go about speculate what's the problem caused by, so on and so forth. But if you know there's a problem, you see there's kind of a warp, go in and just change it. Get out of the mind, get into the real world and use your hand, which I want to use a Hebrew letter to explain this concept. So in Hebrew, there's a letter called the Kaf. The Kaf, as you can see here, looks like a hand. So if you think of your hand like this, what that means is you need to, and a lot of the meaning of the word is to go forth, to understand, to move, to get your hands in and involved with what needs to be worked on. Simplifying is about just looking at the problem and reducing it down to the most basic component. Don't overthink it. From there, step into the execution. So you know now on this vehicle, there is a problem, or let's say it's your team member on your team, or let's say it's a relationship in your life. How do you take that relationship, that team member, and change your situation or address the person so that you can then change the environment? Here's why environment is important. Environment is so important for a few reasons. So if you don't change the environment, or let's just go through every single example I talked about. If you don't change the tires, you know the tires are messed up. If you don't change the relationship, get out of that relationship. If you keep trying to fix something that is already broken, what is that going to do for you in the end? It's more than likely 99.9% of the time going to end up not only back to where you were, but even further behind. And no, putting your hands forth, simplifying what you're doing, executing upon changing the situation is going to help you to get to this next step. So let's jump into the testing. All right, the testing. This is so important, if not the most important, because when you test, what you're looking for from the test is what? You're looking for a result, and that result is going to be found in the transforming. So if the thing you're testing is not changing and giving you the result that you desire, then you are not focusing on the core of the problem, the root of the problem. And when it comes to solving problems, one of the, if not the most important thing is knowing actually what the problem is. Why do you think that it is the news is able to recycle the same stuff every week? The news, or the never-ending waste system, that's what I call it, is able to recycle the same thing every week because they are more concerned with views than they are with change, in my opinion, for the most part. Now, on that, why they're able to recycle and talk about the same problems over and over, because they're sharing information ultimately that is attractive. They're sharing information that ultimately does not lead to a solution. So what you need to do here when you're going in simplifying and then you're going in and executing and testing is make sure in the end the transformation that you're looking for is what you're achieving, because if you're not getting the result, then there's something in the process of what you're focusing on that is not aligned with achieving the end result. So jumping back in, make sure the end result that you desire is being achieved by what you're testing. If it's not being achieved by what you're testing, the end result, then what you're testing ultimately is not the root of the problem. Remember, put your hands forth. I'm going to go through this with the Hebrew letter, the Kaf. Put your hands forth on the problem. And then from there, take the problem, simplify, execute, test, transform. And remember, if you're not achieving the result that you desire in the transformation, then there's either a variable in what you're testing that's not right, or there's something that just needs to be changed totally. And for instance, what I mean by that is you might have a person who maybe it's not necessarily in this situation that your employee per se is having problems as much as maybe they don't have the skills to achieve what you need. You cannot take on the car end of things a F150 and hit the Nuremberg and expect it to perform as good as a Ferrari Enzo. You are trying to use something to achieve a result that ultimately it can achieve. So know that if you're testing something and in the end, even if the test is showing, hey, there's a problem here, maybe from the beginning where you thought the problem wasn't. So there's two ways to look at the end result, in that maybe you're testing the wrong thing. So you change the tires on the car and now the car is performing better, but the car was an F-150. You're not going to ever be able to complete a lap time, if that's your goal, is fast on the Nuremberg as a Ferrari Enzo, a Porsche GT3 RS, or the King, a Corvette ZR1. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that this helps you take what you're facing and simplify it, execute it, test, and transform your reality. This is Caleb Nation from Nation Media Design. See ya.